This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 153. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's episode, we've got a jam-packed show. We've got a wrestler unmasking himself accidentally, as well as a former wrestler or former Impact Women's Champion burning herself pretty bad. So we're going to discuss that in the news and notes segment. Of course, we've got Hell in the Cell coming up, and we've got all of the go-home shows that we got to delve into. And doing it with me, as always, is the one, the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
I love Hell in a Cell, one of my favorite pay-per-views. I can't believe I think it's been 3 years now since I attended it at Little Caesars Arena. Hell in a Cell, always, somebody willing to climb on top and do some damage. I love it. I'm excited. I thought the brand splits, the draft the shows have been a lot better. Even though the ratings might not reflect it, the shows are getting written a little bit better, making some sense, heading into Hell in a Cell. I'm excited for it. And, bro, we get to talk about two top-end wrestlers singing together and just putting together funny-ass bits. Dude, the week of wrestling was awesome.
It was a pretty good week of wrestling. Let's start with SmackDown. SmackDown tonight, we've got our go-home show for Hell in the Cell. Last week, you got to see Daniel Bryan reappear. He was in two different segments. Now, the issue I took with Daniel Bryan's appearances, very early on when you had Stephanie McMahon and Triple H basically doing roll call, and then you had him in the ring later on in the evening, it seemed almost to me like he was an afterthought in both of these segments. Daniel Bryan is a guy who you can build essentially your entire brand around, and he hasn't been in the ring, hasn't been wrestling in a while, and it's all due to COVID, mostly because he's got a young daughter at home, so he doesn't want to subject her to anything by getting sick himself. But in these segments, it felt almost like he was just kind of like a guy. He was just there. I think that's a total disservice to Daniel Bryan, especially when, like I said before, he's a guy you could really build SmackDown around, and he should be one of your top 3 or top 4 guys on this brand. And it just didn't really come off that way. It didn't really feel that way to me. I'm not sure how it felt for you.
Exactly. And I think that when you take time away, unfortunately, he stalled his own momentum. He's been this way now in regards to performing overseas. He seems like kind of the guy that, hey, I'm here when things are good, but if there's going to be a little bit of adversity, if it's going to affect me and my family, then I'm more than okay with taking a couple months off. But in the wrestling industry, you take time away and all your heat kind of goes away. So I think that's kind of how he got treated, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I kind of took out of SmackDown, and SmackDown was a pretty decent show. To me, it feels like you have the Jey Uso and you've got the Roman Reigns storyline going on, and it continues to build and it continues to get better, I think. And in the end, what I think is going to happen, this is just me just kind of spitballing and kind of trying to foreshadow what's going to happen. Roman Reigns had mentioned having this mafia or mafioso gimmick. And I think what you're going to end up having is you're going to end up having a group. You're going to have a heel faction with Roman Reigns, and it's going to have Jimmy and Jey Uso in it. But right now, Jey Uso feels almost like he's fodder for Roman Reigns. It feels like he just keeps getting fed to Roman. Tonight is the go-home show for SmackDown before Hell in the Cell, where they're about to have an I Quit match in Hell in the Cell, which is going to be huge, and I think it's going to be awesome because their last match was fantastic. Jey has to come away with a win here. At some point, he has to get one up on Roman. If he doesn't, he will just be fed to the wood chipper, and it totally devalues his character, and I think it hurts the storyline. He needs to come away with a win at some point.
I think so, or he needs to have a match where he kind of I think what you're saying is he needs to kind of feel on par with Roman Reigns.
Exactly.
That's what we're looking for, is to say, okay, you don't look the part, you haven't been acting the part, so do something. Give us that psychology, give us something, give us that belief that you belong in that ring, and make us believe that, wait a minute, throughout the course of the match, maybe you deserve to be a champion, or you deserve to be somebody on par with Roman Reigns. And I think that's what hopefully the objective will be in this matchup.
Now, we transition over to a Raw that, to me, felt a little bit weird. It felt a little bit disjointed, especially since we've got a go-home show for Hell in the Cell. And some of the things that came out of Raw just had me scratching my head. So The Fiend opens up Raw, which we thought was great. You messaged me and tell me about what you loved about this. You were like, oh my God, The Fiend is opening up Raw. This is what it needs to be. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. It started off with so much potential because you had Alexa Bliss. Her look is perfect for what you're doing. And it's just the entrance was great. It felt like the music was on point. You're like, okay, I'm into it. Maybe there's going to be a developing storyline, something new, fresh. It had the feel of like, okay, this is a big deal. A lot of times Raw has been starting off with matches like with the Hurt Business and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, that's great, but that's not big money feel. Raw has lost that big event feel. The Fiend made it feel like, oh, this is a big event because it went on for so long. And I thought the presentation was great, but then they just shifted away real fast to Retribution and the Hurt Business, and I thought it took away from the start. And you're right. Right after that, literally, that was the best part of Raw for me, was the first 7 minutes. After that, it was like, oh, Retribution, Hurt Business. All right, it's okay, but I was excited for the start. I was like, okay, maybe they're going to do something. But I thought Raw was, maybe I was a little more impressed with it than you were. I felt like the setup for Hell in a Cell was good. And I like the intrigue, obviously, with AJ Styles and kind of the manner in which he's conducting himself, getting a victory. So I understand in totality, you could say that Raw, missed the mark in terms of hitting a home run, but I think they got at least a double or a triple out of it.
See, I think what you said when you were talking about how it felt with The Fiend being out there, how it felt like it was a big event. Monday Night Raw was always primetime television. You had to tune in. You were going to miss something, and there was no way you were going to be able to catch it. So you had to watch it because you knew it was going to be this awesome event, and it was going to leave you with some type of cliffhanger. It doesn't feel like that anymore. And I think that's part of the problem that we have with Monday Night Raw, and we have with a lot of wrestling shows right now, is you don't have that big-time event. And a prime example of that is The Fiend opens up, and it is fantastic. But then Retribution comes down. And I don't understand how this storyline is going to work with Retribution and The Fiend. To me, The Fiend is such a great character right now. You need to save him for somebody or something special. He is a guy who one match can build somebody's career. Retribution, a group of, we're going to call them collective misfits, led by a guy who is absolutely stand out-ish. In Mustafa Ali, can cut a great promo, is great in the ring, has a fantastic look. If you're going to try to build a program with Retribution and The Fiend, it's got to make sense. This could be one of those things where it could be faction against faction, but it's not. To me, it seems like it's Mustafa Ali and all of his guys versus The Fiend. All you're going to do is feed these guys to The Fiend and boost him up even higher. It doesn't make sense. You just put this group together. Don't do this. And then you have them get beat by the Hurt Business moments later. Like literally minutes later, they end up losing to the Hurt Business, which doesn't do anything for this brand new group that just got introduced. To me, it's just poor writing and it's poor booking and poor long-term storytelling. I mean, if you're trying to get the group over as this underdog misfit group that is just going to come out here and they're hard-pressed and they're hard luck and they're just going to lose a lot, and then all of a sudden they're going to get a win, that doesn't work. There was enough intrigue and there was enough buy-in as to who these guys are. Then you paired them with Mustafa Ali. Now everybody's like, all right, cool. Let's see what you can really do because this looks like it could be something really, really good. And it just hasn't been. And for me, Retribution is already DOA. It's done. Like you are going to have to come up with something way better to save this group and get me reinterested and get me wanting to buy into Mustafa Ali as their leader and the group as a whole. You come out with stupid names like Slapjack. What the hell is that? That doesn't even make any sense. Like who the hell goes around being called Slapjack? Just, it just doesn't make sense. None of it just doesn't work, man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just you said you hit the nail right on the head. They got to do better.
So then we had Braun Strowman and Keith Lee feud. I don't understand this. Like these are two guys that you really want to get over, but you're going to have them fight each other. That didn't make sense. Now, I just kind of want to move on from that. I just want to throw that out there because, again, these are things that just didn't make sense to me on Raw. You have AJ Styles come out with a bodyguard, and I know you love his bodyguard. So this was the guy who was running. He was the doorman for Raw Underground. He is a wrestler. He's an NXT guy. Apparently, his in-ring work really isn't up to snuff, and that's why he's getting paired as a bodyguard. So it's going to be interesting because I feel like he could learn a lot from working with AJ Styles, but AJ Styles has this new persona with this bodyguard, and I know you absolutely love it. Tell me why you love this so much.
Because it's the dynamic of this little guy, like this little wrestler, and he's just coming out now with a bodyguard that's like a huge, big dude, and it's like,
this
you know
guy's
what?
Like 6'6".
Exactly. It's kind of like, you know what? I'm AJ Styles, and I'm gonna use my muscle, and having a bodyguard is kind of funny because you don't really believe that AJ Styles would need one. So it's kind of like he's using a manager or a valet kind of as a little bit more of like, hey, don't touch me. And it kind of puts this cloak of like, I'm untouchable and don't mess with me or I'm going to cause, I'm going to use my force to do bad things. And so it just comes across as a good look because you know what it is? AJ Styles is playing it off as like, hey, don't mess with this guy. Don't talk to him. Don't look at him. He's going to cause, he's going to be out here to protect me and make sure that I get what I deserve here on Raw. So I like the angle. I like the bit, and I think it'll play well.
I think it'll play well, too. Now, on Tuesday night, we had Impact. And this is Impact's go-home show for Saturday with Bound for Glory. What did you like or dislike about Impact this week?
Yeah, Impact was strong, bro. Basically, Bound for Glory is a big deal for Impact, and they've done a good job week to week to highlight vignettes of things that are going to happen. And I think the big thing is the tag team surrounding the Good Brothers. And the main event was really excellent. You had the Good Brothers taking on the North, and it was just an amazing match. I thought it was really good. I felt like, the Good Brothers now are getting highlighted, and the North is also getting a good opportunity. Good Brothers fought the North to a no contest. I think the Bound for Glory matchup is going to be definitely one to watch, and it could be the crowning achievement for the Good Brothers. I just think that how they've highlighted these tag teams heading into their marquee pay-per-view has been good because they've been exposing them little by little, week by week, and so I thought that was great. Highlight of the show, probably the main event, but you had Kylie Ray and EC3 do promos, and their promo work was unbelievable. It was engaging. It was inspirational, kind of. It was along the lines of like, okay, if you're not interested in Bound for Glory before, you better be after you heard Kylie Ray put over her match with Deonna Purrazzo and then EC3. Wow. I think EC3 and Moose, really some of the finest work that they've done up until this point. The interview with Moose that they had really set the tone, and you're just like, wow. These little segments that we talked about that they produce just have the intended consequence where they draw you in, you're interested, and you pay attention. Again, first hour was interesting. You had Heath and Rhino taking on Alicia Edwards, Cousin Jake, and Hernandez. So it was a fatal five-way match, and it had high stakes in regards to everything. I thought it was good to see Heath, Rhino, Alicia Edwards. It was a good opening match. Could it have been better? Possibly. But it was good to see kind of the drama with Rhino now having to, fend for himself because, they're talking about their careers at Impact and everything like that. So good fatal five-way to open up Impact. And then you had the interview with Moose. Havoc took on Rosemary. Probably the thing I graded the least. I gave it a D. The thing, like I said, I liked the best were the promos. The Bound for Glory previews were really amazing. And then finally, the main event, like I said, the Good Brothers and the North had a no contest. All in all, a great preview for Bound for Glory. A lot's going to come out of it. I think that Bound for Glory is going to set the scene for a shift in, who's going to be at the top of the card and who's going to be getting some of the bigger attention. And right now, Impact has been performing week to week at a solid B+ level, and really highlighted by the fact that we can concretely say, at least for 1 hour of wrestling, if you watch, the 2-hour show, you'll be entertained. But if you really want to get the heat and the most value out of an hour of wrestling, the second hour of Impact has been great for the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's something you've been proclaiming now, like you said, for the last 6 weeks or so. And I think the one thing Impact is doing really, really well is they don't have a ton of pay-per-views similar to WWE. They only have about 4 or 5. But those pay-per-views are big time.
Yes,
and what they do is they set the scene for the build-up to the next pay-per-view. So like you said, it's going to be a little bit of a shift. And what you're going to get is you're going to get a lot of new character development from a lot of different guys. And again, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to get new wrestlers who are going to get featured, and then they're going to have their time in the spotlight. And it does a great job of kind of rotating guys in to take these places with these long story builds and these long story arcs to get you to this pay-per-view. So I think they're doing a really fantastic job there. Now, like I mentioned before, it's been a go-home show type of show here. And NXT, this was their go-home show for Halloween Havoc, which is going to take place next Wednesday. Again, Halloween Havoc was an old WCW pay-per-view, which was one of my favorites. I thought it was great. Now, I want to know what you thought about this go-home show, because what I took away from it was you have a ton of really good wrestlers in NXT, which, hey, shocker. But I thought you got a lot of really good matches. You got a lot of good quality build. I think out of the 3 WWE programs, you probably got some of your best build work for a go-home show from NXT. I thought some of your matches here were absolutely fantastic. And you had a common thread running through the entire show where you had the Undisputed Era challenging Breezango for the tag team championships. And all of a sudden, very early on, Bobby Fish gets taken out. It was supposed to be Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong. It was supposed to be the Rod and Bob connection winning gold for Undisputed Era. And Bobby Fish goes down. And then later on in the show, Roderick Strong goes down. And then basically it leaves it all up to Kyle O'Reilly to pick a partner to go wrestle Breezango. And he had his option, but he said, I'm not doing that. You can give it to Danny Burch and Orny Loken and let them go out there and challenge Breezango, because those were the guys who were basically next up. And then they put on a great match. It was a clinical match. And in the end, there's this massive reveal at the end, and we can talk about that in a moment. But I want to get your sense of what you thought about this go-home show for Halloween Havoc, because I thought it was really, really good.
Excellent. Good wrestling. Amazing promotion of Halloween Havoc. I thought NXT, like I said, what they do so well and they deserve so much credit for is when a whole shift of wrestlers leave, they just quickly rebound. And look, you got the Undisputed Era now that's over. You got, like I said, I was going to ask you, and my notes said, wow, I'm kind of interested in Breezango. They're doing a decent job. And like we've said in the past, it kind of felt like a step back. But you know what? Sometimes when you're given an opportunity in a different spot, you just take advantage of it. And they have. They've deserved their spotlight. And you know what? They're becoming formidable. And I like the fact that, you know what? Hey, these are guys that have been staples on the main roster. Now they can be staples at NXT. And I have no doubt now, based on what I saw in NXT, Halloween Havoc is going to be legit.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great show. I can't really wait for it to come on next week. It's got me interested. Now, like I said, there was a common thread throughout the show, and it was surrounding the Undisputed Era. At the very, very end, a masked character jumps up on the ring and provides a little bit of a distraction for Breezango, which allows Danny Burch and Orny Loken to give a low blow to, I believe it was Fandango in the ring at the time. And next thing you know, they come out the new NXT Tag Team Champions. This masked character later gets in the ring only to reveal himself to be Pat McAfee. Oh. So Pat McAfee, we thought he was done. It was a one and done, but like we knew he hadn't left the company because there hadn't been anything said. So like he was just kind of sitting around. This is his new reintroduction to NXT. He has teamed with Burch and Lorcan, and I think this was an awesome reveal. I think what you do now is you got two guys who have been really, really good. Danny Burch and Orny Loken are very, very good wrestlers. All right. You now pair them with a mouthpiece like Pat McAfee, who is a little bit rough around the edges when it comes to his in-ring work, but it's not bad at all. And I think what you have is you have a new faction to now challenge Undisputed Era. And I think this is great because it was all about taking out Undisputed Era.
Great reveal. You love being surprised. Pat McAfee's going to do his thing, and he's going to be a staple now at NXT, and I think it really suits his personality. He belongs. Probably can't do it full time, but when he shows up, there's an opportunity to be intrigued, and that's all you can ask for.
Absolutely. Now, switching over to the other Wednesday night program, AEW. We had a bunch of great matches for the AEW Championship in their tournament. I want to know which one was your favorite. We went through last week and we basically previewed all of them. And I think for the most part, we got all of them right. I think the only one we might have got wrong was the Pentagon Jr. and the Rey Fenix match, where Rey Fenix ends up winning. He will now take on Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega is going by his cleaner gimmick, which if you paid any attention to what he had going on in New Japan, his cleaner gimmick was one of his best. It was absolutely fantastic. Wardlow ends up moving on to take on Hangman Page. I think we both believe in the end it's going to be Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega at Full Gear next week on November 7th. So which one of these matches was your favorite and why?
Definitely Kenny Omega. I want to see what's going on. I think that, the shift has finally, maybe AEW finally heard that, hey, shift this character from this guy that's kind of just ho-hum doing the tag team thing, this guy that's kind of been in the background, and let's put him and remind us of why he's a legend. This is Kenny Omega. This isn't a guy that's like, Heath Slater. This isn't a guy that's like the perfect 10. This is Kenny Omega, main event, top 3 wrestlers potential in the world. So to see some of the stuff that made him the legit badass that he was in Japan, it was good to see, and that's what we're looking for. So that's why I put on all caps, Kenny's back, baby.
Yeah, Kenny Omega's match lasted all of about 7 seconds. He went up against Sonny Kiss, who filled in for Joey Janela, who had come in contact with somebody with COVID, so he took himself out of the tournament. Now, I don't think you can find fault with any one of these matches. I thought they were all, like I said, fantastic. And really and truly, it goes 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D for me, because they were all top-notch and high-class matches.
Yes.
For me, though, because of the statement that was sent and the way it played out, it was Kenny Omega's. Like I said, it was a 7-second match. It was against a guy who was probably totally overclassed by Kenny Omega, but it was the matter in which Kenny took care of business. It was 2 moves. It was a V-trigger, and then it was a one-wing angel, and then it was 1, 2, 3, and it was done. It was absolutely done, and the look on his face was priceless. It was great. So for me, it was Kenny Omega number 1. Then you had the Lucha Brothers tearing the house down as number 2. I thought what you had with Jungle Boy Jack Perry and Wardlow was absolutely great. That was probably my number 3 match. And then number 4 was Hangman Page's match. So I thought we had great matches all the way around for the tournament. And then we had our musical with Chris Jericho and MJF. Now, they're supposed to be having a steak dinner. And this starts off with them trying to one-up each other on how they want their steak prepared, starting with MJF, who wants it well done, and then Chris Jericho goes medium well, all the way up to Chris Jericho ordering it blue, which, if you don't know what blue is, it is basically the bloodiest of bloody, rare cuts of meat. From there, they just break out into song. Like, they work through some differences. They break out into song. So, look, I'm going to be honest with you. By the time this was all said and done, I found it highly entertaining. But I was a little bit confused as to where we're going with this. So, like, are they a tag team now? Did MJF join the Inner Circle? Is Chris Jericho and MJF running the Inner Circle? Are we starting a new group? I'm not 100% sure where we're going, but I love the ride. I think it's been absolutely fantastic. Them singing in this classical musical was outstanding. It was a great number. It was a fantastic little ditty. I loved it.
Exactly. I think that's what you said, is it opened up a lot more questions than we knew the answer to. So at the surface level, it was entertaining and it was funny. So that's what we got to see, is to say, look, these guys are multifaceted and multi-talented. And I think that was really the intended consequence, was to draw people in to go, what the hell is this? And to now stay tuned for future weeks to figure out how this is going to get played out.
Yeah, it was good, man. And then, of course, we had the Young Bucks. They will now challenge FTR at Full Gear for the Tag Team Championship belts. No big surprise there. We do have a preview, and we do have some predictions for Hell in the Cell. So with WWE, we constantly have a ton of pay-per-views. This week will give me another shot to try to climb back into the mix and take you down. I believe you are leading still by 5 points. So we'll start with the very first match. Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, taking on Jey Uso in a Hell in a Cell I Quit match. I think we both agree this is going to be Roman Reigns.
Absolutely.
There's no other way, really and truly. WWE Championship, Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton. We're going to continue this with a Hell in the Cell match. And I think I'm going to go Roman Reigns here. Or I think I'm going to go Drew McIntyre. I'm sorry. I'm going to go Drew McIntyre in this match.
Yeah,
How about you?
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's just highlighting a feud that needs to continue. And so it'll play out where Drew McIntyre is just going to continue to elevate himself, elevate his brand, and we're going to see Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton tear the house down with their match.
Then we've got the SmackDown Women's Championship. We've got Bayley coming in as the champion, taking on Sasha Banks in a Hell in a Cell match. On Friday Night SmackDown, we probably got some of Sasha Banks' best promo work of her life. I'm going to go Sasha Banks in this match. Are you sticking with Bayley?
Oh, boy. See, here's the problem. Bayley's been on top now for over a year. I can't stick with Bayley because of the fact that if you have this feud and the manner in which it's developed and you have Bayley win, you basically cut off this feud before it started, right? You can't have it because then it would delegitimize Sasha Banks as a contender. So you have to continue this for a little bit of time. And so how do we continue this? We continue it by having an opportunity for Sasha to get the victory. So I can't go with Bayley. It has to be Sasha. I agree with you.
All right. Then we've got Jeff Hardy versus Elias. This is a brand new feud that has started from, I think it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago when Elias came back from injury. Who do you have, Jeff Hardy or do you have Elias?
Man, this one's tough. See, Elias is returning, and I think you got. I know you and I have said it before in regards to moving forward and things like that, but Jeff Hardy's been winning. So I'm thinking along the lines of it's tough, but I have to go with Elias. You can't move over with the. You can't have Jeff Hardy winning feuds now. You just can't, especially at the expense of Elias. So I'm going with Elias.
I'm going to go different than you because I could see these next two possible selections playing out and just try to get the points. I'm going to go Jeff Hardy. I think Elias probably makes the most sense to win this match because, like you said, he's coming back. Jeff Hardy is a guy like, what are we really doing with Jeff Hardy? I think Jeff Hardy is coming towards the end of his contract with WWE. Looks like he's going to go to AEW when that's all said and done. I'm going to go Jeff Hardy just to be different. Elias makes the most sense. Now, in a match that we might get, now remember, card is always subject to change. We may get Dominic Mysterio versus Seth Rollins versus Buddy Murphy. Who do you have in this one?
Ooh, a payoff, huh? A nice feud. Yeah. Buddy Murphy.
That way we can move Seth Rollins on from all of this mess.
Exactly. That's why I'm giving it to Seth Rollins.
Okay. I'm going to go with Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy's a guy who I feel like can get a little bit of shine here and can really do something. And can kind of catapult his career. Seth Rollins could go into his deranged phase a little bit more, and he can take on whoever is up next. Kevin Owens versus Aleister Black in another possible match that we'll get. Who do you have?
See, this is one of those feuds that I definitely highlighted, something I'm interested in. Kevin Owens is a major player. I just feel like he's really interesting. I think on Raw, he's the guy, potentially that's going to be viewed as the Daniel Bryan, a guy that's been there, main event caliber, but just isn't used right. And then you got Aleister Black, who's gone through a character change. So this one's the hardest one to predict. Hell in a Cell is always one in which Kevin Owens does his best work, but Aleister Black, really, I just don't know. Like, both guys can't lose. Both guys would benefit from winning, and both guys really are strong contenders. But I just got to go with who's got to get that push, and it's got to be Aleister Black. I'm
going to go Kevin Owens. That's weird. I thought these would end up more similar. I think because we ended up so different on the back half, I think I'm going to switch my Jeff Hardy to Elias because, again, like I said, I agree with you mostly on the Elias pick. So I'm going to switch my Jeff Hardy Elias pick because we were so different on this back half here. I'm going to go Kevin Owens. I think if there's a guy who needs a win the most, it's probably Kevin Owens because I just feel like he's been kind of toiling away. I think Aleister Black could take a loss and you could wrap that up into his character almost like you did with Seth Rollins, and he can come out better the other side as long as you do something really, really good with him. All right. That is the prediction in the preview. So just to recount, we both have Roman Reigns winning and retaining his Universal Championship. We both have Drew McIntyre winning and retaining his WWE Championship. We do have the Women's SmackDown Championship changing hands with Sasha Banks coming away the winner at a Hell in a Cell match against Bayley. Going back and changing my pick, we both have Elias beating Jeff Hardy, Dominic Mysterio versus Seth Rollins versus Buddy Murphy in a possible matchup. Again, card always subject to change. We are thinking that we're going to get some finalization here and allow Seth Rollins to move on to something bigger and better. And hopefully Dominic Mysterio and Buddy Murphy can both move on to something bigger and better because we're all tired of this storyline. I've got Buddy Murphy. You've got Seth Rollins. And then Kevin Owens, Aleister Black. I've got KO. You've got Aleister Black. This should be a really good show. Should be a fantastic Hell in the Cell.
Yes, sir. No doubt. Yes, sir. No doubt about it. Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list, my friend?
So not a whole ton. We already had a jam-packed show, so just a couple quick things. The original Sin Cara accidentally revealed his true identity.
Oops.
The former WWE star accidentally unmasked himself and revealed his true identity at the end of one of his Instagram live streams. The 37-year-old Mexican wrestler seemingly thought that he had turned off his Instagram live stream, so he took off his mask. However, fans were able to manage to get a screenshot of what he actually looked like before he realized his error. Now, remember, in lucha culture, the unmasking of a wrestler, seeing their actual face, is a very, very big deal. Sin Cara, the original Sin Cara, didn't really work out in WWE. That's why you have the Sin Cara that you have now. So this was interesting, and this was a bit of a shock for most WWE fans. Former Impact wrestler and Knockouts champion Taya Valkyrie has taken to Twitter to show off some pretty nasty burns she suffered from a candle. Valkyrie suffered second-degree burns from Lily's Sweet candles. Currently, her hands have blisters in different spots all over them. She was doing some promotional work for Lily Sweet candles, and one of the candles, the wax, ended up burning her pretty severely, and she took to Twitter to let everybody know about it. And again, like I said, a very short news and notes segment. That's all we've got for you for this week's news and notes.
Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said, feel free, hit us up. We love debating everything that we talk about on our broadcast. Hell in a Cell, Bound for Glory, great week of professional wrestling ahead as we power through October and into November. Make sure that you don't miss out on any of the wrestling content that we got here on the network. All you got to do is go to your favorite place that podcasts are located and type in these three words, Detroit Sports Podcast. And when you hit that subscribe button, our daily content finds you. Monday through Sunday, you'll be able to listen to great audio content breaking down Detroit sports and professional wrestling. Look forward to reviewing Hell in a Cell. I think this one's going to either set the tone for me to have a humongous lead or Adam will get back into it. Make sure you pay attention to the competition, man. It's always fun. Talk soon, cuz.
See you next week, brother. Be good.